Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the Albany City Council work session on Monday, July 10th, 2023 at 4 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order and a roll call, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Mayor Alex Johnson II,
Here.
Councilors Newton, Novak,
Here.
Montague,
Here.
Kopczynski,
Here.
McGee, and Smith.
Here.
4 councilors present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Councilor Newton said she was going to join us online, so we'll look for her. Do we have any business from the public other than the letter we received today? Hope the council's got a chance to read the letter from Mr. Goodrich. Next on tonight's agenda is storm drain system development charges. Rob Romeo and Deb Gallardi, pages 2 through 5 of your packet. Please take the floor. Thank you very much. Well, you're not
That
Rob.
should be Rob Emmons.
Rob Emmons.
Yep.
You changed your hair.
There was a slight typo, but I love his name. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
We already talked about it, but yeah. We haven't done anything about it. We haven't done anything about it.
Huh? Hold on, I am having a little
Oh,
difficulty.
that's to adopt the. And now we've done that, right? Yeah, we did. Okay.
I was able to share it earlier, and now it is not cooperating.
Here comes the fixer.
Okay. Nope, fixer. Okay, so I'll go. Am I out of Zoom? Yeah. That doesn't come up.
Perfect blend.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you, Mayor Johnson and Council. Apologize for the difficulty there. I will try to get this mic to work correctly without fading out or deafening anybody. So tonight we are talking about system development charges, specifically storm drainage system development charges. So we have a quick, semi-quick presentation, and joining us today is Deb Gallardi. She is our consultant who's kind of guided us through this project or through this process. So the presentation today, I'm going to do part of the presentation. Deb's going to do a few slides, and then I'll wrap up. So with that, a quick overview, we're going to talk about a background, talk about SDCs in general and how storm drainage has been funded historically within the city of Albany. We're going to go through a process of how SDCs are implemented and what those steps are and where we are at in that process. I'm going to talk about the work that we've done to date. It's really quite a bit of work that's happened up until today, so we'll review that process and go over possible implementation methods. If council wants to implement an SDC, storm drainage SDC, which would be staff's recommendation, but we'll go through that process. So a background of SDCs, and some of this may be reviewed, some may be new. I'll go over just a quick couple bullet points to make sure we're all on the same page. The SDCs are a one-time charge. They happen at the time of connection to the utility or when a building permit is issued. And those charges can be issued for all 5 city utilities, so water, sewer, storm drainage, transportation, and parks. The city currently has 4 of those SDCs. We have water and wastewater, which were implemented in 1991. We have parks implemented in 93, which you guys just went through an update with parks to update that fee. And then transportation, which was implemented in 1997. And to date, we do not have a storm drainage SDC. So if implemented, this would be a brand new SDC. So SDCs are designed to recover the cost needed to provide infrastructure capacity to new development. So it basically funds infrastructure that is needed to serve growth. And they are governed by Oregon revised statutes. Those statutes review the process of how an SDC is to be developed, what certain things need to be in the methodology, and they govern the administration requirements of the SDC, how they can be collected and how they can be spent. So to continue with the background, storm drainage in Albany has kind of been, it hasn't really been historically funded very well. Historically, it's been funded by a transfer from the sanitary sewer utility. So there has not been a dedicated source of funding for storm drainage utility. That's not really a sustainable process. It's a whole factor of reasons. Usually the costs are increasing for construction, but more importantly, the regulatory requirements for both sanitary sewer and storm drainage. Those regulatory requirements are becoming increasingly burdensome. So kind of seeing that path forward, the city back in 2017 implemented a storm drainage utility, and that revenue funds system maintenance, regulatory compliance, and it funds partially can fund capital improvement projects. So that's a great step. The city has implemented that, so that's great. But the next question really is, do we want a storm drainage SDC to help continue to fund storm drainage improvements? So, and I'll leave you with that question. Ponder that, and we'll come back to it, and we'll ask for guidance a little bit later. So the process to adopt an SDC, really those 4 main steps. The first step is the adoption of a storm drainage master plan, and we have done that back in 2021. We went through that process and we adopted a brand new storm drainage master plan. That's done. The last 2 years, we've been working on updating or developing a methodology with resulting fees, draft fees, and that has been done. Next step is what we're doing tonight, hit that checkbox, is we're reviewing it with council and going to review the methodology and propose draft fee. Based on input that we receive from council, we'll revise that methodology as needed, and then, if directed so, we can go through a public process and go through the adoption process. So let's talk, during that process, let's talk about the storm drainage master plan. That really is the first step. Like I said, it's been completed. But what comes out of that master plan are a list of projects and an amount of money that we are targeting to collect. So it's important to go through those projects, and again, we'll go through this quickly. So the City of Albany is really divided into 6 major drainage basins. They're named for the creeks that, or the area that those basins drain to. Each basin has, from the master plan, there's identified number of projects for each basin and a dollar amount those projects cost. So I'm going through this slide quickly. because this table has the same information. The basins to your left, number of CIP projects, and the total project cost. And that total project cost is hidden by this. There we go. So that total project cost is $170 million. Pretty daunting amount, pretty expensive. But what this table has is an additional column on the right-hand side. And that column is the SDC eligible cost. So for each basin, there's the project cost and the SDC eligible cost. And if you notice that SDC eligible cost is quite a bit less than the total project cost.
So at the bottom is TSP. What does the TSP stand for?
Good question. The TSP stands for Transportation System Plan.
So why would that be part of this piece?
That's a good question. The Transportation System Plan, those are roadways that were identified in the TSP. And for each new roadway, there has to be a drainage system associated with that roadway that drains the road and then drains the surrounding properties.
So will that fit, that number come off of the transportation system plan? Or is it in conjunction with?
So this, we called the TSP, and it's probably, thinking back, it's probably not the best name to give it. They are really, that's just identifying the drainage cost associated with those roads. So we brought it in, called it TSP, but it's really the drainage cost associated with that new roadway. So.
But the question is isn't that built into the cost of that new roadway?
No, not the cost identified in the transportation system plan. That cost includes the roadway and not the drainage system.
Good.
This would be like when we build any new road and it needs any utility attached to it, new water mains, new sewer mains.
Correct.
Those need to be done before the asphalt goes down.
Correct.
So this would
So
pay for the storm drain component of that.
So I recommend changing that because it has me asking those questions, and I won't be the only person asking those questions.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. We get zeroed down in the nickels and dimes and details and naming conventions can go right by us sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Go ahead, Council.
I have another question, Ron.
Yeah.
Define what makes a project SDC eligible.
So good question. That's what the next slide talks about. If I can get to the next slide.
You went backwards.
It'll lock up on me. There we go. Okay. So how do we determine what portion of that project is SDC eligible? And that's what this slide attempts to do. So there are 142 projects listed for total cost of $170 million. What we do is we look at that project and we determine what portion of that project is addressing an existing deficiency, meaning there are pipes in the ground, there's a project identified. Is that project correcting something that we cannot attribute to growth? I mean, there's existing drainage issues. So we've identified those and we back that cost out. And that total is $78 million. Also, for a project, if it's a brand new project, developers are responsible for installing the minimum pipe size, and that minimum pipe size is a 10-inch pipe. So developer comes in and builds a project, and that project has a cost associated with it. We, in the TSP or in the master plan, we subtract out that developer responsibility. And so, and that amount is $35 million. So we have the total cost of 107. We back out the existing deficiencies, and we back out what developers are required to install. And that leaves $57.6 million, which are then SDC eligible to fund. Does that help?
It does. Would it be fair to describe this as projects that are completely new, that don't have any existing deficiencies because they don't have any existing anything?
They don't exist.
And yeah, no, so brand new project, brand new pipes needed. And as far as the developer costs, these would be pipes that are bigger than the required minimum. Is that correct?
Correct, but they don't have to always be a brand new, they're brand new pipes, but they can be replacing an existing pipe as
Okay.
well. So, but yes, yeah, that's essentially correct.
Replacing an existing pipe with something bigger than
With the
10
bigger
inches?
pipe,
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Or just a brand new pipe and a brand new roadway.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks.
Council? Anybody else? Councilor Kopczynski, any questions?
None yet.
Okay, thank you.
So we've been talking about numbers and tables and cost. So for me, sometimes I get lost in the numbers. And so I had a suggestion given that let's if we implement an SDC, what does that do for us? I mean, sure, we collect money and it helps pay for growth, but what does that mean for infrastructure in the ground? So we pulled out a project from the Storm Drainage Master Plan that is SDC eligible. And that's what this screen shows. And the red line is an SDC eligible project, and it's given a fancy name, PC-A. This pipe is located mostly within the Periwinkle Drainage Basin. And the Periwinkle Drainage Basin in central Albany is pretty much at capacity. There's a little bit of room left to grow in that basin, but not much. Room to grow, what I mean is capacity for storm drainage. Most of the storm drainage facilities in that area are full, especially Periwinkle Creek. So to drain that area, we need to build a brand new pipe that runs north and outlets to the Willamette River. So we need to create a new outlet for that drainage basin. That's an expensive project. It's just under $15 million. That is 74% SDC eligible. So the SDC eligible portion of that project is just under 11 million. But what that does is the slide has photo points on it, 1 through 5. I have some photos of those photo points that this is what happens to those areas during a significant or major rain event.
Wow, is that 96?
What's that?
Is that
This was
96?
2012. So, and basically 13th and Thurston is underwater. 18th and Jackson, pretty close to 18th and Jackson. That parking lot is underwater. There's no room for the water to go in the street. The same with Groves Court. That whole cul-de-sac is submerged. 22nd and Jackson, that intersection is submerged. And then 34th and Geary, that intersection is submerged. So this, this is one example, and a significant example, to be honest. That project is SDC eligible, and with SDC money, we can put toward that project and help relieve these issues and allow that basin to have more growth. So with that, I'll leave you with that. I'm going to pass it over to Deb, and she's going to talk over a few slides, and then it'll come back to me for some implementation and discussion. So with that, Deb, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So as Rob has been describing here how we come up with the improvement fee portion of the SDC methodology, you may recall from prior methodology reviews that under Oregon law, there are two components of the SDC. One is that future-looking list of projects that come from the master plan, and the other is the reimbursement fee, which is based on existing facilities. We go through a rigorous process, just like Rob described for the improvement side, where we look at all of the existing facilities, determine what is being replaced by the capital improvement plan, because we don't want to include that, and what has been funded by city resources, not developer resources. Those remain on the list. And then the third criteria is that there is available capacity within that pipe generally for future growth. So like the improvement fee, it's capacity, we're recovering the costs of capacity needed for growth, recognizing that some of it comes in the form of new facilities or upgrades to existing facilities associated with the improvement fee. And part of it comes from existing pipes that aren't going to be replaced that have available capacity. Next slide.
So can I ask a question about the reimbursement fee? So this is for new development, correct?
Correct.
So prior costs incurred by the city exclude developer funded. So why are we charging for prior costs if this is new development?
So under the Oregon statutes, the idea of the SDCs is to recover the full cost of capacity needed for growth to allow you that opportunity. And it recognizes the fact that you, over time, invest in different parts of your system. So, you put in a new pipe and you're planning for a much longer horizon to meet development needs within that basin, oftentimes through a build-out scenario. So just because it's been paid for and you maybe advance, pool your SDC dollars or pool other funds to pay for that project, you still need to collect SDCs from future development that will also be served by that project in order to be, whole, basically, with growth paying for all of the capacity that it will utilize.
Thank you.
And also it's worth noting that SDC revenue can be used to pay for debt service. So oftentimes for facilities, cities will use SDCs to pay off part of the debt because you've borrowed against that as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. The basic math of an SDC methodology is pretty straightforward. We take the cost, both the reimbursement and the improvement fee costs, and we divide it by the growth units. And the growth units will vary with each infrastructure system. For water, we look at water demand, parks, you look at people. For stormwater, we look at impervious area because it's impervious surfaces that contribute to the need to manage stormwater, like those pictures that Rob was showing in terms of the flooding issues. And so to determine the SDCs that are shown in this table, we've summed the reimbursement component, which turned out to be $10.3 million, with the improvement cost, which, as Rob mentioned, is the $57.6 million. You combine those and the total is $67.9 million. We divide that over the total square feet of projected growth in impervious area, and that comes from the master plan or in the city's GIS system. And we come up then with a cost per unit or per square foot of impervious area in this case. For reference, we've applied that unit cost to a typical dwelling unit, which, based on the city's development of the stormwater utility for rate setting purposes some years ago, determined that a typical household has 3,200 square feet impervious area. So when you do that math, which you can see in the table, the reimbursement component is $252 per EDU, and the improvement component is $1,401. Combined, just about $1,650. for a typical household. Now, just because we're showing this as a typical household, the recommendation is actually not to charge all homes the same. The city has gone through a process with its other systems to allow scalability of the SDCs for residential development so that you can charge smaller homes less and larger homes more. So you would be implementing the methodology based on the cost per square foot and then determining the SDC based on the size of each development, residential and non-residential, based on that measured impervious area. Next slide, Rob. And just to give you a sense as to where that total fee fits in terms of a typical range that we see across the state, there's, as with any of the SDCs, there's quite a range. You can see here the low being $226 for Corvallis and upwards over $3,000 per residential unit for Staten. The reason for the large range is any number of factors. It has to do with where these cities are with respect to their stormwater requirements, and a lot of that comes out of their regulatory requirements, what other funding mechanisms they're utilizing, how recently they've adopted their SDC, and whether it's keeping pace with inflation. And another big issue here is how they're defining an equivalent dwelling unit, because most cities will charge a uniform SDC for a residential home. And that's the case in many of these, or there will be perhaps a few different tiers, like a low, medium, and high. And so that can also factor in, because one city may be based on 3,200 square feet, another may be based on 2,600 square feet. So that's why we see quite a bit of variability here.
So for this model that you put before us, is that for that 3,200 square foot house mentioned earlier?
That's what the 1653 that's shown in this table is based on. But again, if it's a 2,000 square foot impervious area, then it would be significantly less than what's shown. It would be taking that cost per square foot times the actual measured impervious area.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilor Smith has a question.
Deb, do you have any idea how many of these fees are weighted heavily by regulatory requirements?
Rob might be able to answer that. I'm assuming that Salem, the larger cities most certainly are. And I don't know, I was actually talking to McMinnville earlier today about the regulatory requirements that they'll be facing over the next 5 years as it ramps up. So I don't know where these other cities are with respect to TMDLs, water quality kind of things, and MS4 permits. There's, all of the different regulatory requirements. But Rob, I don't know if you have any insight into that.
I don't, but it usually takes a while before the funding side catches up with the requirements. So my gut says that the fees have not caught up with the TMDL implementation yet. Albany is just now catching up. We're just now realizing, hey, we need a storm drainage SDC, we need a source of revenue. And we just happens to coincide when we finished our storm drainage master plan. So those kind of got the perfect storm. My guess is other cities will be following suit, but they haven't yet.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. All right. So that list, the methodology, kind of in a nutshell, is pretty quick. It comes out with a draft fee. So this is where we need
Excuse me, Rob. I forgot to check with Counselor Kupczynski. Do you have anything, Ray?
Just anecdotally, when we started going down this process back in about 2017, we were kind of in, I guess, no man's land. We had no idea how this was going to play out, in that all of these different rules and regulations are starting to come down the pike. And we said multiple times that this was going to ramp up over the years. So we knew this was coming, and that it was going to get to the point where it was going to have to be self-sustaining. And so we're just trying to tiptoe into that arena right now.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. So fee implementation strategies. And I guess I should probably lead off by suggesting that staff's recommendation would be to implement the max allowable fee, and that term max allowable fee basically is the fee that we have identified that recovers the 57.6 plus the reimbursement portion that Deb mentioned. So that fee recovers the cost that we need to cover the cost of growth. So that is one option, to bite the bullet, go through the process, adopt that fee. What past councils have done have implemented a reduced fee, not for storm drainage, but for other SDCs. But to do that, there are consequences to implementing a reduced fee. We need to go through the process of finding out or determining what projects are not going to get funded and which projects would get funded. As we reduce that fee, there's a consequence with that. And then who pays for the projects that aren't funded? In reality, that comes from existing ratepayers. That would come from the storm drainage utility. So it take the burden from growth and put it onto existing customers. But that is an option. Together with that, there is an option then to phase in the fee. Instead of implementing the max allowable fee all at once, you could phase that in over 1, 2, 3, 4 years. You could also phase in a reduced fee as well.
Okay, just a minute. Counselor Newton, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, I didn't see you on there. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
So this is where I guess I'll throw it to council and say, what would you like to do? What direction would you like to take? And because ultimately today we would like to leave with, boy, should we march forward and implement, go through that process to implement the maximum allowable fee, or come back and present some options for a reduced fee. And so one caveat is, today, if you say, go forward, implement the maximum allowable fee, then that starts a process, a public adoption process. And we got to finalize the methodology. We got to put that out for public review. And there's a few steps that's all mentioned here. So I want to relieve you of the fear of going, oh, if we say yes today, it's going to take effect in a month or 2 months.
No.
It just starts that public process, and there's time for public to comment and council to, weigh in and kind of chew on public comment and still make a decision. So.
Counselor Novak.
Thank you. I do have a question with regard to a timeline. If we gave you a go-ahead, what are we looking at for a timeline for implementation?
Yeah, so let me skip to that slide. So the public process is once we have a final draft methodology, we need to make that available to the public for a 90-day comment period. And there's a whole notification list that we need to let certain folks know who've requested to be notified. So we will notify those folks, put that out there on our website, and that's a 90-day comment period. Running concurrently with that 90-day period is a 60-day period to review the methodology. So there's a 90-day notice, and there's a 60-day chance for the public to take a look at the methodology. So to answer your question, 90 days working backwards plus another month or maybe 2 months. We'll need to work with Deb on her availability to actually get the printed hard copy of the methodology. So at least 4 or 5 months from today.
Thank you.
So Counselor Newton had her hand up. So go ahead, Counselor Newton.
Thanks. I just wanted to confirm, since this is a work session, you're not allowed to really make any decisions until Wednesday. Can you confirm that?
Oh, you're asking if we could further the discussion on Wednesday?
Yeah, just because this is a work session, I don't believe we're able to make decisions to vote on how to move forward until Wednesday.
Yeah, we don't make decisions on work sessions. It's not the practice.
Counselor Newton, to clarify, there won't be any decisions on Wednesday either. So what we're looking for today is feedback on the SDC methodology and rate. And if the council is okay, we will go forward and start the 90-day public notification process. So their decision at the end of the public process is a public hearing, and that's when the council will make the decision. So, and that's the at least 4-month time frame that Rob had mentioned just a second ago.
Does that answer your question, Counselor?
Yeah, I feel like that's still kind of a decision, but I'm cool with that, like us moving forward. But I just wanted to make sure that we are following all proper procedure.
So what I would like to see also is more, because you had the 3,200 square foot home. That's not the average house in Albany, is it? It can't be.
No, it's 3,200 square feet of impervious area. I think
Okay.
that's a distinction. So the average house square footage is smaller than that in Albany, but the average residential lot
Okay.
has 3,200 square feet. We went through an exhaustive process when we set up the utility. So that's the average amount of square footage of impervious area. So that's the home, the driveway, et cetera.
So you might want to clarify that when we get out in public, start talking about this.
Sure.
Okay. Counselors? Counselor Smith?
I'm comfortable giving the go-ahead to start the process for the maximum allowable fee.
Counselor in agreement? Show me your thumb. Oh, Counselors, you have something, Counselor Kopczynski? He's got a
No,
thumb.
this thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'm in agreement.
I think you can move forward.
And just to be clear, when we receive public input through the process, that will come back to the council as well.
Correct.
So you'll see that before the public hearing, or at least as part of the public hearing.
So targeted for adoption January or December?
No, I'm thinking this fall, and I'll need to talk with Deb to find out what her availability is to actually finish a hard copy of.
4 months puts us in November. Nobody's doing anything in December.
Yeah, well, yeah. Worst case would be at the beginning of the year. Would be January.
Right, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have questions going forward. Thanks, Rob.
You bet.
Thanks, Deb. Next on tonight's agenda. Okay, show me something. There we go. That's business from the council. What about? So we're moving up the safety presentation to now because business is out of order on here. So
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. There was a potential for having it in an executive session, but that is not, that law has not been signed by the governor yet.
yeah, Gabe explained that to us earlier. So Chief Harden, thank you for coming to us today. You have the floor.
Thank you. And give me just a second to deal with technology here. All right. I hope that I won't blow out everybody's eardrums if there's a little, let me mute my my microphone here real quick, or put this away so you can hear me. Is that going to work better? Okay. All right, let me get here to the presentation. All right, this is a weird setting because there's people behind me, which is the whole point of being safe. So one of the things that we had talked about, and we did some training for city staff over the last 6 months, is just personal safety. And there's some discussion about some incidents that occurred here at City Hall during public meetings and that. So I'm here to talk a little bit about personal safety. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. It's usually a 2-hour session, but I don't want to keep you here for the whole part. We'll talk about things that are specific to your personal lives, as well as while we're in session here, things to think about. And feel free to jump in and ask any questions anytime. I can't see the participants, so if any of the other counselors online have a question,
I'll make sure you know about
point
it.
it out. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. A little bit about this presentation. This was developed by the Seattle Police Department about 10 years ago, and they offer it to businesses and the public. It's a little bit aimed at women, mostly because women, at least for personal violence, tend to be statistically higher as far as when they receive that violence on one-on-one. So we'll talk about that a little bit and then go into like businesses, and we'll end with active shooter response, which is a key thing to consider here. We'd like to do this in executive session only because we want to talk about the specifics of this building, but we might come back when that law is passed and talk about the specifics of this building and some things to think about if you do have an armed incident in the building. It's important to know that anybody can be a victim. I've been a crime victim twice, had my house burglarized, once when I was sleeping on a graveyard shift. So anybody can be a victim. That's important. It can happen anywhere, anytime. The important thing is to be vigilant and be aware of your surroundings. Again, women are overwhelmingly assaulted and attacked by known subjects. So statistically, most sexual assaults, major crimes against women are known or perpetrated by a known suspect. And if they're victims of murder, robbery, they experience higher rates, especially if it's a sexually driven crime. I want to give a little disclaimer. There's a couple videos in here. Some depict violence, some talk about violence. I know that can trigger some people. So I'll pause before the start of the video. If anybody wants to step away or mute, feel free to. Just let me know. I know that it has effect on certain people. So there's a video coming up right after this. Hopefully the sound will work. So in this case, this gentleman, walks into this location, and one woman in the store here, I would say watch the body language. When this individual shows there's a sense of being wrong, and I'll talk about the importance of being aware of your surroundings and giving yourself time and distance to respond. And then once something bad happens, fight with help. Kind of walked out of sight and kind of see the body language of her getting something a little more uncomfortable here. You just pulled a knife at this point. Fighting. She actually tried to pull him out of the store. get away from video here, is that that's the joy of the technology right there, is that she continued to fight. I don't know if it's hard to tell, but she actually grabs a hold of the knife or his hand that had a knife in it, and then used her body to basically pin him down. That was her best defense at the time. Whatever it looks like, the important thing is to fight and fight like hell, and assume that if you are confronted with a weapon that you're probably going to get hurt. It's up to you. You only have a few seconds really to get into a situation where you can defend yourself. So one of the things we're going to try to do is talk about the importance of your instincts and your gut reactions. There's a great book, which I'll talk about here in a second, that is vital to basically learning to trust that second sense, or that sixth sense. It's the common sense gene, and want to make sure that people don't poo-poo it. They don't dismiss it, that they follow it. It's there for a reason. Talk about some situations you might find them here in Albany. Albany is a very safe city from a violent crime standpoint, but it can happen. So just being aware of your surroundings, and learn how to make a safety plan. It's one of the things we talk about is what does it look like here in the building. We have gone through a series of trainings with staff here. You'll notice by each of the exits, there's a little red gizmo, and that's to emergency lock those doors. We can lock them electronically, but if somebody's not near their computer, and we need to do this, we know something's happened at the courthouse, they can lock down that door pretty quickly. So things like that. We also did a walkthrough, which we will do with the council at some point, and the various workspaces to make sure. My mute or mine went out. Okay, all right. I'm just trying to limit the back. Okay, I think I'm good now. All right. Now I lost my train of thought. Thanks, Matt. Is one, having a safety plan. So if we have an incident here in chambers while a meeting is in session, what do we do? What can you expect? As you know, there's always a police representative at every public council meeting, either myself or the two captains, or we'll have somebody here in our absence. So making sure we have a safety plan and we know what to do, where your exit points are. And all of you probably like going to the theater, sporting events, things like that. Active shooter or active threat violence can hit any large venue these days. Large crowds, it's not just schools. We've seen it happen in churches, malls, and in government buildings. Making sure you have a good sense of where your exit points are and what will stop a bullet, perhaps. We had a conversation earlier about what city halls and public chambers look like in future development, things like that. So just having a safety plan. And then ways to decrease your odds of becoming a victim. The big thing here is it's mindset and preparation. I hope that nobody in this room, including the people behind me, are ever a victim of violent crime, but it can happen. And you shouldn't live your life paranoid. I wouldn't say don't not go to a sporting event. Don't delay going and doing something fun just because you're afraid of something that might happen. The important thing is to know that it can happen. Statistically, it's low, but are you prepared and thinking about it? If you like to go hiking, do you have your dog with you? Do you have, does a friend know what your walking path looks like? Things like that. So it's mindset and preparation. And we know that there's what we call a triangle of crime. It's means, motive, and opportunity. And we're going to talk about here about opportunity. You may not have control over means. You may not have control over the motive of the person. But you have some control over the opportunity that you're given to avoid being a crime victim. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Again, I talked about this, is being aware of your surroundings. This is a great tool, but it's a very dangerous tool for diverting our attention. I don't know how many times I've seen people walk into fire hydrants and power poles because they're not paying attention because they're on their phone. Same thing goes for bad guys looking to see what you're up to. If you're not paying attention, you're on your phone, when you get in your car, you make yourself a victim a potential theft or worse, a carjacking. So just being aware of your surroundings and having a plan. And there's something we refer to in the police world as the color codes. Paying attention to your world. You don't want to be in condition white, and you don't want to be in condition black. You want to be a good place to start in today's world is in condition yellow, aware and assessing. Now, I've done this job for 30 years. I'm very aware of who's around me, driving home from work, when I come and go from the building. That's the nature of what I do. I'm not saying you have to be at that level, but as elected public officials in a world that seems not to be able to get along with each other, it's good to be aware of your surroundings when you leave. And I don't know if you walk from City Hall, especially when we get into the fall, during the hours of darkness, you have a flashlight and the like. When something doesn't feel right, you should be moving to condition orange. Aware, have your phone ready if you need to call 911, have your keys at hand if you need to use them as a defensive weapon, and starting thinking about, okay, how can I get out of this? How can I escape? And then condition red is bring it on, and you're fighting to get away or to defend yourself. The bad place to be is in condition black. And I refer to a call I was on early in my career. We had a shooting inside a restaurant inside a Nordstrom store in Bellevue. This store had 3 restaurants in it, and we had a bank robber get into the restaurant, and we went to confront him, and a shooting happened inside the restaurant. And you could see all of it was captured on video, and I wish I still had the video today. It was from the early 2000s, but it really showed these conditions at play. I saw people who, even in the middle of a crowded restaurant with a shooting occurred with gun smoke hanging in the air, just sitting there mindlessly eating their lunch still, where other people had run for their lives. And that's condition black. You don't want to be there. So start thinking as you're driving home, as you're walking out tonight, as you're going shopping with your family members, if this happens, what would I do here? Do you know where your exits are? Things like that. And then also trusting your instincts. I talked a little bit about this. This is a fantastic book. If you have trouble sleeping and you can't watch scary movies, I would not read this book before bed because it's got some scary stories in it. But it's a fantastic book written by Gavin DeBecker about the gift of fear. And it's an instinct that we should never discard. And we use it a lot in policing. A lot of times when people have attacked to the police, there's usually we call them pre-attack indicators. And a lot of that goes to fear. They've done something to kind of raise our hackles or the hair on the back of our neck, so to speak. So this is a great book. And there's a little bit of a video here too, and hopefully I won't do feedback.
I was in college, and one night I come home 2, 3 in the morning, and I parked a couple blocks from my house because we didn't have parking by my house. Got out of my car, and I noticed that there was a pickup truck with men in it, and there was a couple of guys in the back of the pickup truck. And I was walking across the street towards one of the little side streets, and the guys, they made a U-turn, and something in me said, they're coming for you. And I ran full force up my alley. I went in my apartment. I didn't turn on any lights. And I went to the back window, and I watched them drive up and down in the little area where I lived and look for me. My intuition saved my life that night. I truly believe it did.
You did save yourself, and you applied a resource that worked. And it's a gift.
How could fear be a gift? Well, it is.
These feelings are gifts. They're not things we should ignore.
The gift of fear was a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD all rolled into one.
One of the gifts that we hope to give people is to feel permission to listen to their intuition and act on it every time, because intuition is always right in at least 2 important ways. Number 1, it always has your best interest at heart. And number 2, it is always based on something. All of us have learned through a lifetime of saying, gee, I wish I hadn't done that, or I knew I shouldn't have done that, or I wish I'd listened to myself. We've learned that the intuition is very often accurate and useful and helpful. I like to think of it as making the journey from A to Z without stopping at all the letters on the way. It's just knowing without knowing why.
I think I thought certain people are born with great instincts about people and certain people aren't. And I didn't understand that actually it's a primal skill we can all tap into. Some of us have just buried it really deep.
Everybody has intuition. It's not gendered. Everybody has a feeling. We're not encouraged to listen to it because it doesn't seem to be in the logical realm.
It comes into every aspect of your life, who you trust, who you speak to, who you don't, paying attention to your gut, what it tells you, and the significance of what it's telling you. This is critical life skills that could save lives, literally save lives.
There's been a lot of research done lately that proves that when it comes to safety, intuition is more accurate than logic. It really is powerful. I mean, I wouldn't recommend investing in the stock market based on your intuition, but in terms of safety, it's a good way to go.
So one of the things that's really important about that is, and there's a little bit of an underlying sense about it, is we tend to disregard our intuition or that fear and not act on it because we don't want to offend another person. So when somebody comes to your restaurant and you don't feel right and you don't want to let them in, but well, I don't want to be rude. Or somebody comes to your door, we feel there's an obligation to answer the door to a solicitor. You don't have to answer the door to anybody. So if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't, and you're under no obligation to remain in that particular situation. My recommendation, our recommendation is you get out and get distance. Distance is your friend. So it's okay. You can say no without being rude. So the plan is keep a running game plan. We all travel to various places, particularly if you're going to an unknown place or a place that does have a higher rate of crime. Just be aware of your surroundings. I don't think, even with my experience as a police officer, that I would walk willy-nilly by myself through the Portland streets at night. That just doesn't happen anymore. Even here, if I'm going home at 2 o'clock in the morning after a late call or something like that, I'm going to be a little bit more aware. So it's just have a running game plan in your head and keep it simple. When adrenaline hits, and we've all had those big adrenaline dumps when we've gotten a car wreck or something like that, your brain does not function as smoothly as you would like when adrenaline is flowing, so keep it simple. Being able to quickly dial 911, things like that. And then action versus reaction. If you're not mentally prepared, you're not thinking about the what ifs, and I'm not saying be paranoid, but if you're not thinking about the what ifs, then you're going to slow yourself down by just getting stuck in the reaction. But if you've already practiced it and thought about it, you can bounce quickly into action without having to go, okay, where am I? What do I do here again? Things like that. I'm not going to, we did this with city employees, I'm not going to have you all yell, no help, police. But just practice it. Again, we tend to want to be polite individuals. And if you need help, yell that you need help, especially if you know that there are people around. Make sure that you're very vocal and practice it. You can drive down the street in your car in Albany and just start yelling and you'll be just fine. So just practice it. And then I already alluded to this a little bit. Being rude versus saying no. It is a very real problem. One of the first entries in Gavin DeBecker's book is he talks about a woman who lived in an apartment building, I think it was in New York City, who had an armful of groceries. And she was asked by a male, hey, can I help you? And she didn't feel right about it, but she didn't want to say no or be rude. So she allowed him to help and ended up badly. She survived it, but she said, I should have trusted my instincts and said, nope, I got it, things like that. So, and you have to kind of think about how would I broach somebody if they wanted to be a little bit forceful and get into your space. This happens quite a bit if you're at an ATM machine or in your grocery. Costco is notorious, people getting a little bit too close because they're they're not paying attention to you, it's okay to say, hey, can you give me a little more space here? And then just ramp up the language if need be, if that's the case. But this is your safety, not theirs. And a normal person will probably go, oh, I'm so sorry, things like that. If they continue to pressure you, then your instincts are probably very solid. Any questions before I go on? Okay. If you are attacked, physically attacked, fight for your life. Assume that they have bad intent. Now, normally I would say in the world, don't always assume bad intent by individuals, but if they get in your personal space and have assaulted or attacked you, assume that they want to do you harm. So make sure that you fight and you fight quickly because you've only got a limited amount of time, and accept that you probably will get hurt a little bit in the process. Know your targets and don't be shy about it. Eyes, nose are always good targets. Throat, groin, even male or female, that will work. So know your targets. Think about it. If you see somebody that's making you uncomfortable, I'm like, they're about my height, I could probably give them a palm right to the nose, which is pretty painful. If you've ever gotten hit in the nose, that might buy you some time to get out of there. And then also make sure that you're fighting to win. You're fighting for your life. If they've attacked you, you have to assume that they want to do you great harm. And then also, don't ever, we'll talk about carjackings here, which don't occur very often in Albany, but they do happen. Don't allow yourself to be taken to another location. Let them have the car and just give yourself some distance. So we'll play this real quick.
We say this often, and the statistics bear us out. The best way to protect yourself against rape is to be willing to fight no matter what. Hi, everyone.
Before I do that, I just want to give you a warning about that particular video because it's actually an attack video. Oh, come on. Oh, come on.
We say this often, and the statistics bear us out. The best way to protect yourself against rape is to be willing to fight no matter what. Hi, everyone. This is John with today's active self-protection lesson out of Brooklyn, New York. It's going to show us a surveillance video that is very chilling of a woman who is going to be the subject of an attempted rape. Thankfully, she is going to do everything right to protect herself from this attacker and save herself this night. We're going to listen in on the audio here, then come back and learn some lessons. Fair warning, it is pretty scary stuff. All right, let's go back and learn some lessons from this very brave woman. We can see her at the very far right here already fighting her attacker off. And what we're going to see here is she's trying to get away from him, and he's got a hold of her from the rear. Those attacks happen from behind all the time, and it looks like he's either got a hold of her lapel or even her hair. And that's something that's very common that you're going to have to fight through, ladies, to get turned into this guy. Now, he's right there, has grabbed a hold of her face and is trying to shut her up. But one of the best things she's doing is raising the alarm here, screaming and hollering and getting people around her. Rapists do not want to be seen. They want to get you to a place where they can have you alone, and she won't allow that here. And that was one of the best things that she did. She fought back with everything she had and kept raising the alarm here. And I think this was one of the reasons that he ends up letting her go. The other thing that she does there is you see her there break his grip. She does everything she can and hits him very hard, and that's what breaks his grip. The last thing that I want to say here is you notice she had to protect herself. Nobody was going to come in the moment. She had to protect herself from this guy, and she did a great job of that. And because she was willing to protect herself and did everything she needed to do, she covered her ass.
I think that's no matter the circumstance, whether it's an attempted sexual assault or not, the fight is on, and you got to fight to defend yourself as much as possible. Even the littlest thing, I believe, it's hard to tell from this video, but I believe that she kicked him in the shins, which is another good area to try to get some distance. And just remember, and we see it in policing as well, that's where we practice, and create muscle memory, because under high stress, you're going to fall back on what you've done to prepare. And if you haven't prepared, then you might find yourself in condition black. And again, if they come after you, bring the fight to them. And again, there's any number of things that you can use. You all have name tags on the dais. Some of you have staples, have car keys. Those are all things you can use to defend yourself. So some safety tips for location or activity. Walking to and from the street. I think a couple of our counselors walk to and from council meetings. So just be aware of yourself and your surroundings. I would, when you exit City Hall, especially if you've had a difficult meeting, but maybe even not, just be aware, take a look around before you exit and make sure that you're seeing if anybody's hanging out, or if an individual that was in council is hanging out, that maybe you just wait and leave with somebody else, or you have one of us come and escort you to wherever you're going, your car or your building. Be familiar with your frequently used routes. Try to walk facing traffic. That's generally a good rule just in pedestrian safety as well, so that you can see what's coming at you. If you must walk alone, try to walk in the middle of the sidewalk. We have a bunch of older buildings with beautiful alcoves. You don't necessarily want to be right there where somebody could be lurking in that alcove. And then also be careful being too close to parked cars, parked vans, things like that. And again, don't be paranoid, just be aware of things. If you're going to an unfamiliar area, make sure that you're aware of it. Do not rely on GPS alone. We had wonderful people drive into Lake Washington in Bellevue one time because they were just following their GPS, didn't seem to realize that the off-ramp had ended, they're on a gravel, and they end up in the lake. So don't just trust your GPS. Know where your surroundings are. Usually, I travel quite a bit. If I'm teaching or something like that, I will go to the location the night before, so I have a general idea where I'm going, things like that. Carry your purse and bag tucked under your arm, or if you have a long strap, over your shoulder. If it's just hanging loosely on the one shoulder, you just grab it and run. So whatever you can do to secure things. Consider clothing and shoes that you can run in. That's not always viable if you're having to go to a business event, but a lot of people keep walking shoes or something like that near their desk. Make eye contact with others. Now, a couple times this has come up in these presentations where people go, well, can that set people off? Yeah, it can, but I think if you look up and I was passing the mayor and I say, hey, how are you? That tells them that I'm acknowledging their presence. It doesn't have to be a staring thing or anything like that. If they start to get weird about it and say, why are you looking at me? That is a big clue to start increasing your distance. Because we do have people around us that struggle with mental health issues, and you want to increase your distance if that's something that gets them triggered. If you suspect you're being followed, turn, look, cross the street, and walk to a safe location. A lot of times we'll get 911 calls from people who are either being followed in a car or followed on foot, and we tell them to get to 7-Eleven or something like that. We tell them to drive to the police station, anywhere where there's other people, because that's going to generally scare off another person. Never allow anyone to close the distance. Most normal people will not infringe on your personal space unless they have ill intent. So just be aware of that. If you think that they're closing the distance on you, move to the other side of the street or stop someplace safe and let them pass. If they start to match your routine, then that should be a problem for you. And then start yelling and screaming, create a scene if it starts to get worse. That will bring attention to where you are. Not a lot of us ride on the bus or light rail, but sometimes we do. But I think there's something significant here. It's a little bit tough to see in this particular picture, but if you look at the woman sitting in the seat, her purse is right there on the aisle. It's an easy grab and run. So it's good. One lady has their backpack or something on their lap, and they're kind of hugging it. Somebody else has it over their shoulder. Those are all good. thefts on mass transit are actually quite common. Not so much down here, but if you happen to go up and use the mass transit up in the Portland area, you want to be careful about yourself on those structures. But the big thing is don't leave anything valuable where somebody can just take it and run. Same goes for sleeping. A lot of times people want to sleep on the bus or train. Not necessarily a good idea. Here's a better picture. So you see the woman on your right, I think it is, with the yellow, her bag sitting right there. She's not paying attention. The gentleman behind her, this gentleman's got his arms over his belongings, and the gentleman on the phone has his backpack slung and it's away from the aisle. Those are all good things to think about. For the two gentlemen, the woman, not so much. So if you're out walking, these apply for walking, jogging. I love my earbuds, but if you're out in an unfamiliar place, we have wonderful trails here. I'm not sure if you're by yourself that you should be wearing headphones. If you're not by yourself, you're probably not wearing headphones because you're probably talking to the person you're with. But it's a red flag for somebody that you're not paying attention to what's going on around you. You should carry a cell phone. There are walking and running apps where you can share your route with people and friends. So if you're unsure of where you are, that's a good thing to share the route. Vary your routine, so don't go to the same place, the same time every week and do the same thing. Know some landmark streets if you need to call for help. One of the things we had, it wasn't a suspicious person, but we had some hikers that got really deep into Simpson Park and didn't know where they were, and no idea landmarks, and it took us a bit to find them. So just being aware of your surroundings. And I'm 10 minutes in from the parking lot at Simpson Park or Talking Water Gardens, something like that. And then report suspicious activity. We know that we have some issues with homeless in our trails and in our parks. We need to know about that so that our parks are safe. Just being homeless itself is not a crime, but a lot of times it comes with activity that we want to deal with. So making sure that we're aware of anything that's unusual. And then look for running apps, like I said, to share your apps. Here's a little bit more on some safety, but this will also apply to just general walking.
See the world. It takes everything we have to face it without a sound. Inside
Don't move. Don't make a sound.
inside our hearts are racing.
A runner or walker that is all alone is at higher risk for being attacked. Here are some tips to help minimize your risk. Number 1, run or walk with a dog, a group, or at least one other person. There is strength in numbers. Number 2, do not wear headphones. It's obvious to others that you are distracted and you have your hearing at least somewhat impaired. Number 3, only run on a well-traveled path that is well lit. Number 4, don't be distracted with your phone. Predators look for people who aren't aware of their surroundings. The element of surprise is always to their advantage. Pay attention 30 to 50 feet around you. Number 5, run at the time of day when other people are around. Number 6, do not run close to trees or buildings where someone could easily grab you. Number 7, if there are people just hanging out around your path, cross the street or turn around and go the other way. Number 8, alter your route. Do not be predictable. Number 9, it is very unnatural for a stranger to keep your exact pace. So if you feel like someone should be passing you but isn't, there may be a reason. Number 10, if you are surprised and someone grabs you, fight back, scream loudly, and do not give up. Do not let them take you to another location, ever.
Remember, predators want a quick and easy target, not a fighter. Above all, trust your gut. If a situation doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Be loaded with an abundance of safety options. Be strong, be aware, and be confident. Subscribe to our blog or YouTube channel and learn more.
Again, in there, the narrator talks about being aware of 30 to 50 feet ahead of you. I think that's just a general practice, good practice anyway. When driving, I would say a block. We train our officers to be aware of a block in either direction so they can anticipate things like that. When you come up to an intersection, give yourself a half a car length or car length of distance to get out of there. Don't get pinned in by other cars, things like that. So for driving safety, lock your doors as soon as you get out of the car and in your car as well. We get distracted sometimes looking at our phones and stuff like that. Most cars these days will auto lock once you hit the ignition. Some cars wait till you put it in drive, but it's good, especially at night, to just hit that lock button when you're in your car. It's also a good idea to kind of take a peek in your car before you get in it, especially if it's parked in a dark place. Don't fall prey to aggressive drivers. It takes two to have road rage. So if somebody is being that person on the road, and there's a lot of that these days, since COVID, it seems like it's a ton of aggressive drivers, let them pass and let it go. And then if it's really bad, call us with the plate information and we can follow up on it. But don't chase them because bad things happen. We actually had a stabbing on Queen last year involving a road rage that got a little bit out of hand. So again, pull over, let them pass, call us, and then leave yourself plenty of room to escape. Especially if you've seen trouble coming at you. One of the things where I actually saw this really work pretty well is, as you recall, we had the shooting over by the train station at the beginning of the year. You had people that left themselves room to escape, and they were able to quickly alter their path from where they were coming under the bridge trying to go eastbound, and were able to get the heck out of there. And so leave yourself room to escape. And then your driving safety today, don't tailgate people. If you're being followed, head towards, again, the nearest Willett business. Call us. We'll probably give you some directions. Do not drive home. There are times where I'm not sure, because everybody seems to know who I am, that I'll take a different route home. There's definitely a short route to come home, but I'll go different routes just because of the nature of what I do. So if you think somebody's following you, don't go straight home. You can go past your street and things like that. That's a good way. Note the license plate if possible, and then give us a call. If you're being flashed by somebody, it could be somebody just telling you that your coffee cup is sitting on top of your roof and you're about to lose it, or it could be somebody with ill intent. In the state of Oregon, all police vehicles will have some element of blue lights. And so if somebody's flashing their headlights on you, I'm not sure I would be pulling over. You can call 911, keep going, or pull into a lit location. If they have ill intent, they're probably going to leave. So cell phones and 911. Almost all cell phones these days are equipped with some sort of GPS on the phones. So if you call 911, even if you hang up or leave the line open, we'll get some geographical information from the call to 911, but it's not super accurate. We all know how wonderful the cell coverage is here in downtown Albany. That's one instance where we may have a location, but we may have a 2,500 meter perimeter where you might be. So know where you're at. Know cross streets at least, or landmarks is a good way. Be clear and answer the call takers' questions. They have a specific way they do it. They're gonna, if you're just peppering them with information, they may not be able to get it right away. So let them direct the phone call, so to speak, and get the information out of you. If you cannot talk, you're not comfortable in talking, you can leave the 911 line open and set the phone down. Whether landline or a cell phone, we're going to dispatch somebody, especially if we hear a disturbance or something in the background, you're going to get an officer responding. If it's a clear disturbance, then you're going to get a lot of officers responding. So If you need it, you don't even have to say anything. Just call 911 and set the phone down. And that is true in here too. If something's going awry in this building here during a council meeting and something's happened to one of us, or you're in a different commission meeting, you can call 911 on your cell phone, set it down, and we're going to hear that. And I don't think there's a landline in here, is there? Okay. So things to think about there. But again, the important thing is don't hang up. Okay. There is, stay on the line if need be. And if you've got any other place in your life, if something's happening and you're not comfortable talking to the 911 operator, just set the phone down, but leave it open, and we're going to hear it and then start coming. Shopping malls and parking lots. Again, don't be afraid to ask security to walk you to your car if needed. Park in well-lit areas if possible. I like to park at the end of the aisle and walk just for the exercise of it, but at night I don't know if I would do that. So things to keep in mind there. Have your keys out and ready before getting in your car, but don't unlock the car too soon. We all have key fobs. Don't unlock it at the beginning of the aisle and you're at the end of the aisle. Just be safe about it. Make sure it's unlocked when you get there, but don't unlock it too soon. Again, lock the door once you're inside the vehicle. And then be aware of who's in the cars around you. We get this call quite a bit from our large box stores here where security or somebody will say, hey, somebody's lurking in a car out here. They might be looking for car prowls to prowl your car. This is common during the holiday season. You go shopping, you bring all the goodies out, and then, I'm going to go in one more store and get something. Then you're a target of car prowls. So just being aware of your surrounding, and if you see somebody lurking in the store, just walk back in and ask cashier to call police. Again, our malls, big box stores are common car prowl locations. Our number one user of police services in Albany is Walmart. It's the number one address for police services. So we go there a lot. And you hopefully all practice the 9 p.m. routine. Don't leave anything of value in your car. That is by far some of our biggest crime in Albany, particularly in summer months. People park their car at a trailhead and they walk down to either go hiking or they're going kayaking. Take the minimal amount with you out in your car, but don't leave anything of value in your car for sure. I'm gonna go past this real quick. If you're having car trouble, again, obviously do your best to get out of the road. There's high danger of being hit. Turn on your emergency flashers. If you're partially in the roadway or in a dark place, make sure you call 911. They will dispatch help pretty quickly. If a tow truck is not nearby, generally they'll send an officer out if they have the staffing to do so. Put out flares or just check on you. And then if somebody stops to help you, you're under no obligation to take their help. So making sure that say, I've got help coming, or can you call the police for me? But just be cautious around that. And then hopefully you all have an emergency kit, water, blankets in your car. So for carjacking, it is, we all like to tell people, just give it up. It is a material object. It's not worth your life. Give it up, let them have it. Don't allow them to take you to the second location. If you have a chance to get out of the car, jump out of the car, do it. But the important thing is that you just let them have it. It's an important thing. If somebody approaches and you think something bad's going to happen, start driving away, honk your horn, and get people's attention. That will generally help. Again, this is why it's really important when you get in your car to lock the doors immediately. The other thing to think about as far as gas station security, because we not only have sometimes cars get stolen or stuff stolen out of cars, is lock every door except for your driver's door, where we will soon be pumping our own gas. So you get out, don't leave your car with your purse or other belongings visible, because you're busy dealing with your credit card and things like that. So that way they don't jump in your car and either take stuff or take the car. Some safety at home. Again, block watch is still a thing. I hear from a lot of you about things happening in your neighborhoods. Communication's good. The number one defense in your neighborhoods is each other. And we've had lots of really good luck with the cameras. We catch a lot of people that way. So I would recommend, I'm not, don't have a favorite company, but they all work fairly well, and they've helped us solve a lot of crime. Our young lady that was hit and killed on Geary last year by a hit-and-run driver, we solved that case through cameras. So it was fantastic. We put out information and people checked our cameras, and we were able to identify the person. Again, make sure that and the simple thing about this one is don't make your home a target. Make sure that your vegetation is in a way where you're not a target for burglars. Make sure your lights are all working, that your address is prominently displayed for emergency responders, making sure that you're not leaving things unlocked and the like. Just make your home a hard target. And again, you're not obligated to answer your door to anybody, except for the police with a search warrant, because we don't want to break it in. So, but if somebody comes to the door, you want to tell them or acknowledge, hey, I'm busy right now. Can you come back at another time? But by not saying anything, we've had people go, oh, nobody's home, and they go around to the back and smash a window. So you'd say, no, I can't come to the door right now. And that if they have ill intent, they're going to head on their way. Again, neighborhood solicitors, again, you are not obligated to open your door. Call 911. We do have solicitors that end up committing crimes. If it's safe to do so, take down their license plate and take a photo if need be, or if you have video of it. And then have a conversation with kids. If they're in your home or around your home, they'll open the door and talk about it with family members. But also have them say, hey, mom's on the phone, come back later, so that at least they know to acknowledge who's ever on the other side of that. Again, I talked about making your home a hard target. Can a passerby see someone entering your home? Have you talked to your neighbors? Do you know your neighbors? Are your access points covered by shrubs and trees, things like that? And we can come out and do an assessment on your house if need be, and take a look at whether it is there's some improvements that can be made. We did it here for City Hall and people's work spaces. And then look at a security system. A lot of the cameras, Ring cameras and Arlo cameras, have some sort of ability for you to monitor it as well. Again, most of you know, obviously, that 911 is the big resource here. You should know the non-emergency number. It's coming up for APD. We so many times get calls from people on, and some of you on the dais will call me, not call 911. I love you to death, but just call 911. If it doesn't feel right, call 911, especially if I, for some reason, missed the call. But generally, if it's not an emergency, they're going to move you off a 911 line. If in doubt, call 911. There's so many times where people go, why, you're busy, I don't want to bother you, I know that you have a lot going on. Just call. Let us sort that out. It's an easy number to remember. And don't hang up, because then we have to deal with trying to sort that out. So stay on the line. Again, when to call 911. When somebody's in physical danger, a specific crime is happening, you believe something is suspicious, you're able to explain to 911 that what the behavior is, why you think they're suspicious. It's, again, always better to report. Nowhere will somebody say, why are you calling 911 for this? Generally, if it's scared you enough, it's worth a legitimate call to 911. All right, talk about weapons here really quick. City Hall is a gun-free zone, so that is an important thing to know. We will deal with that if it ever becomes an issue here. The use of force laws in Oregon are very specific. You must be justified, just like police, you must be justified in the use of force upon another person. You have the right to defend yourself, and you have the right to defend a third person. If you reasonably believe that they're going to be imminently in danger of physical harm. You see somebody with a knife, baseball bat, whatever the case may be. The key is that the law will always look at is what would a reasonable person believe, and would they feel the same way? So That's the same standard that we're held to, but we were actually held to a higher standard as far as the police are concerned. But this applies to anybody who uses force against another human being. Again, they look at reasonable and necessary. Was there an alternative to it? In our case with our road rage, with the stabbing, that was not considered a reasonable use of force. The person placed themselves in that position where they had to do it. So again, you're going to know. It's really going to depend on what you can justify and not justify. The important thing is just defend yourself as needed and put distance between yourself and the threat. The types of weapons you might see out there: tasers, pepper spray, knives, firearms, baton, and any weapons of opportunity. So again, the name placards that you have, keys, things like that. These are the typical ones. Yeah, anything you can do to defend yourself. And just know that we have some additional restrictions here as far as firearms are concerned because it's a public building. And then firearms, this is not a Second Amendment thing, but it's just something to think about. I've owned a firearm most of my adult life, all of my adult life actually, because of my career, and I've spent thousands of hours training with it. And if you buy a gun and you don't train with it, the likelihood that it could be used in the wrong way or against yourself is really high. So it's something really to think strongly about. And then we want to avoid anything that is tragic. They must be safely stored. That is state law. We have people who leave armed or loaded guns in cars and they get stolen, and we will cite them for it because it's not securely stored. We had an incident involving one of our schools where an elementary school kid shared pictures of him holding his dad's gun that was unsecured. We cited the dad. So they have to be secured because it can be used in very tragic ways. And we do have free trigger locks for anybody who is interested in one. And if you have a firearm in the home, I really hope that training's occurring. The most worst call in my career involved a 14-year-old who shot and killed his 15-year-old brother playing with dad's gun in the house that was unsecured. Dad thought it was hidden. So they do watch, they do know. They a lot of times will know the combination to safes as well. So very important that if you use a firearm for self-defense and you have it in your home, that it is stored in a place that is safe. And here's the phone number, the non-emergency number for APD. I would program it into your phone. You'll get a phone tree initially, but you can go straight to dispatch if you think it's non-emergency. But again, if in doubt, call 911. Some of the things we look at is online crime maps. Every Monday morning, this morning, we looked at where the crime is occurring in the city. We have our crime prevention staff who will come out to businesses, workplaces, and homes and look at locations to make sure that, and make recommendations that it's safe. And then hopefully we're all signed up for Albany Alerts and Nixle if we have an emergency. Actions take 21 days to become a habit. So practice daily. Be aware of your environment. Play the what if game. I challenge you tonight as you're going home that you at the intersection look around and say, that is a brown Toyota, that is a Buick, or, whatever the case may be. That's the plate on that car, things like that. This is my current location. Those are what if games. So I challenge you to do that. Listen to your intuition. Make eye contact. That's really important, particularly if the person is intending bad harm. Practice giving descriptions of people. Practice yelling, no, help police. You might want to do that in your car, like I said, so we don't get calls on you. And now talk a couple minutes about workplace violence, this is a workplace. And Mayor, do you guys need a break? Okay, any questions so far? Okay. 4 types of workplace violence committed by customers or clients. This is some of the training we gave to city staff. Violence is associated with criminal acts, so somebody's breaking in and gets caught and commits an act of violence to either complete the crime or get away. Violence amongst coworkers or managers, so we have somebody's disgruntled with another person. or domestic violence that crosses over to the workplace. Some of our mass shootings in public spaces, government buildings, sometimes are domestic violence related. Some of the warning signs, direct or indirect threats of harm, and this is for leadership to pay attention to and encourage their people to report. Harassing or bullying behavior, bringing a weapon to work, that's obviously a problem if you're in a city building. Extreme change in behavior, stalking, intimidation. They can't seem to get along with anybody and have numerous conflicts. Inappropriate reference to weapons, if they seem to glorify mass shooting or mass violence. If they're fascinated and obsessed with workplace violence or talk about retaliation. Some basic security measures, keep security doors closed and locked. I know that we're working on some infrastructure improvements here at City Hall, and we have those gizmos out there. Take a look at those. They literally take you about 3 seconds to take off the wall and put in those doors. And that might be you one day if something happens. Don't share ID cards or security codes with anybody else. A couple of our doors here have security codes. Making sure we have a lot of visitors to public meetings, that we're aware of security. Don't allow for tailgating into public secure spaces, things like that. And then if we have somebody here that is in the audience, it's a public meeting, but that is making any of you feel uncomfortable, say something. We're obviously generally in the back, but making sure that we're at least addressing it. A little bit of things to do before violence erupts. Deal with the threatening behavior. This is also for workplace-related things for us. Leadership. Conduct safety and policy training, which we have done here with all or most city employees. Making sure that we're updating policies. A zero tolerance for bullying type behavior. Review the policy with problem employees. Generally, we'll go over and so you understand that this is the policy that you signed, et cetera. And then make sure that management is involved in the process. Intervention face-to-face. So one of the things too, we have some public counters here. We talked a little bit about if we have an angry citizen that comes in or we have an angry person that comes in here to council is have people clear out as we deal with that individual, call for assistance. The big thing is don't match their tone with your tone. Trying to keep a calm voice, use non-threatening language, listen. A lot of times people just want to be heard. So making sure that we are not matching their angry or upset tone, and then maintain a safe distance. No city employee is paid to get abused by the public, and neither are you. And so we want to make sure that civil discord is allowed to occur, but not at the point where people feel unsafe. So make sure you're keeping your distance. There are certain rules that apply to council meetings that I think the mayor is aware of about proper conduct and the like. We will not automatically step in with an angry person here in the council chambers. We will need the mayor to address it first and then ask the person to depart if it's they're making the room feel unsafe or they've made threats or something like that, then we can deal with it. So if they commit a crime or make a threat of violence, obviously we're not going to let that continue. We'll deal with that. So this is the national active threat response. We don't call it active shooter anymore because it's not just firearms that are active threat. This is a national one. The big thing is, it's pretty simple. It's run, hide, fight. It's the standard training we give to businesses, schools, churches here in Albany, and you're getting the same thing. And then after that, we'll can answer any questions you have about what might or might not happen if something happens here. Sorry about that. Sorry.
It may feel like just another day at the office. But occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference: run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important: you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
So that's standard. I think most everybody can remember those 3 things. I would imagine most big companies here in Albany have some similar training. We've done it for Costco and some of our larger employers here. We do active shooter drills twice a year with GAPS now, once in the fall, once in the spring. We did all of our public schools and 1 private school. So it's common that this would be what people would be thinking about. The other thing too is that statistically all the killing is done in 5 minutes. So if you can find a way to survive for 5 minutes, your chances of survival go up a great deal. So with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Council, any questions? Councilor Novak?
It's not a question. I just want to say thank you. Some things that you showed us were kind of a review, and some things were not. So I'm very grateful that you took the time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. On my ship, I was the member of the security alert team, response team, and they showed us how to clear a passageway with a shotgun. Second person comes in the room, you know, all those things, but you brought back a lot of those memories, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Council's online, do you have anything for Chief?
They actually left.
They left, okay.
No, I'm here.
Oh, do you have anything, Councilor Newton?
No, no, I do not.
Okay. Councilor Kopczynski, did you leave?
Councilor Kopczynski dropped out.
He did drop out, okay. So Chief, thank you very much. Very eye-opening, and we have too many mass shootings in this country.
Yeah.
We all agree on that.
What we'll do at a later time is talk specifics about this room and what ifs could happen. It's probably not appropriate for public, so we'll wait until we can be in an executive session for that.
Okay. Yeah, one of my concerns when I sit up here is hoping everybody gets away from me fast enough that they don't get hurt. But, and I'm not joking. But thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it. Next on tonight's agenda is business from the council. I will start with Councilor Newton since you're online.
I don't have anything for today, but thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Smith? Councilor Novak?
Just one quick thing regarding the letter from the member of the public. I would love to hear a response with regard to the question that he asked about the issues that we've had with sewage spills. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would ask Councilor, City Manager or...
Yeah, Director Bailey's coming forward to address it, but I would just remind councilors that those are 2 very different incidents, and Chris will go into a little bit more detail.
Sure. So it was very unfortunate that they happened so closely together. They're completely unrelated. And just as a matter of course, we have a process whenever we have an incident that's unexpected, we do sort of an after-action review of the root causes, what we know about the event. Everyone gets together and we discuss what happened and what we could do to prevent those from happening again.
Chris, could you perhaps summarize what the 2, because I don't think
Sure.
people watching
Okay.
know what the 2 incidents are that we're talking about.
Sure. So the first sanitary sewer overflow, it wasn't really an overflow. It was an event where a construction contractor was working on the west end of Waverly Lake, installing a new sanitary sewer main. There was an incident where essentially what happened is they had to create a rocked work surface there. It was very tight quarters in that in their work area, and so they had a rock base for their heavy equipment to work on. And what happened is the equipment unbeknownst to them at the time, shifted a manhole cone in the sanitary sewer line, which caused a bunch of the rock to sort of fall into the manhole and plugged the sewer main. When they realized what was happening, they, as quickly as they could, went upstream, diverted the flow, pumped around the blockage, and then cleaned the blockage. So even though they had prepared their construction methods, they didn't anticipate that the weight of the excavator would shift the manhole cone. And so that's what happened. So then after that, our staff worked with them to put in additional stabilizing methods and additional preparations for them to continue down this path, because they had to keep going down that main, and there were additional manholes. So they completed that work without any subsequent problem. That was about 13,000 gallons sanitary sewage that went into Waverly Lake, and which is a big number. It's not nothing, but that lake turns over very quickly, and so it didn't create a long problem for the lake. There was no noticeable impact, and we do sampling after the event to make sure that the bacteria levels are reduced. So that all went fine. The second event was an overflow from a sanitary sewer main in Bowman Park. There's a large main that goes through, essentially through Bowman Park, and that location is very close to the wastewater treatment plant. What happened in that instance is the wastewater treatment plant has redundant power. The way it has redundant power is it has its normal electrical feed, which comes from one side of town, and then there's an automatic switch. If that side of town loses power, it'll automatically switch over to power coming from the other side of town, completely different systems, and that has worked well all these years. What happened in this instance is there was a problem with the backup, the secondary power system, so that power was lost on the primary side, and I can't remember why at this point, but when the system went to switch to the secondary power, I think PP&L had done some unplanned maintenance, and that side of the electrical system was not available to the treatment plant. So the treatment plant lost power completely, which is a bad thing. So even though, my memory is that there wasn't a lot of rainfall happening at the time, but there's enough flow in the system that if we don't have our influent pumps actively pumping into the treatment plant, there's only limited room in the pipes for things to back up, and then an overflow happens at the closest low point in the system, which was this manhole in Bowman Park. There's some other factors going on there that we've rectified, but that's what happened. So there was some sanitary sewage that came out of that manhole in Bowman Park until we could get the power back on at the treatment plant and pump down the system. That was about, I think, around 100,000 gallons, which is a significant sanitary sewer spill. We were able to close the park, remove the sanitary sewage with our Vector trucks and sanitize the entire area, sample, and then get the treatment plant working again. So each of these incidents, completely unrelated, completely different causes. And as I said, we do after action meetings to try to analyze what happened and prevent this from happening in the future. So in the construction event, a good example of that is we required the contractor to do some additional work to try to prevent that from happening as they continued on with this project, which is the Cox Creek Interceptor Project's critical project, and that they did not have another problem. The loss of power at the treatment plant, we worked very closely with PP&L. We had a lot of conversations with them about notification and needing to have better open communication for their planned maintenance that would affect our system. So we've resolved some of that. But the long story short of that is, if our secondary power feed is down because they have to do required maintenance and we lose primary power, there's not a whole lot that right now could be done at the wastewater treatment plant. It's, as you can imagine, takes a huge amount of power to run that facility, and it's not like we could just plug in some generators and make it work. But all that being said, you might recall that we have some ARPA-funded projects on the water treatment side where we're trying to add backup power to those facilities. And we started talking about what could we do at the wastewater treatment plant to try to further solidify our power supply there. It's possible that we could, in a major earthquake, that the grid could be down for a long time. What could we do? So we're having those types of conversations. So right now we don't have a new solution for the treatment plant. We do have a better understanding and a better relationship with PP&L to try to identify and resolve any issues with both sides of power in case we do have this problem again. And they, I think, have a better understanding of our need. They were surprised that their turning off our secondary power created that overflow. They didn't realize, they weren't making the connection there. So we have a better relationship with them, which will be helpful in the future.
Thank you. May I ask a question? You mentioned that you did testing after the spills to make sure that things were back to an acceptable level of bacteria. I'm wondering if you could tell me how long it took in both incidents for things to go from not good to okay, all good.
Sure. And there's a lot more to our overflow procedure. We have a well-documented procedure for those, and one of the few utilities to have what's called a CMOM plan, which we created to try to help manage our system and prevent these types of issues. So the process is, at the time of the overflow, you take samples immediately, and then you take samples again 24 hours, and then you continue to sample until it's below background. So when an overflow happens at a certain point, you take a sample upstream that would be unaffected by the sanitary sewer overflow, and that's your background condition. And then you take samples at the overflow point and downstream, and you continue to sample until you're at background conditions. So typically, like in the Waverly Lake situation, I think it was our 24-hour sample, I think, was at background conditions. I believe it was one day. Kristen can correct me if I'm wrong, if she remembers. Typically, when we have sanitary sewer overflows into a flowing water of body, like the lake, believe it or not, is a flowing water of body, it typically resolves very quickly. It'll just flush right through the system, and it's not a problem. A more significant problem would be if there was an overflow, say, for instance, in someone's yard or something like that from a backed up private service line. Those take longer to clean up because you have to manually remove and manually disinfect. But in flowing waters of body, it's usually within 24 hours that it resolves.
Thank you. That's encouraging. And if I could ask a final question. Okay, come back to me. Hang on. It has to do with this. I really want to ask you. Oh, for crying out loud. Yeah, it fell out of my head.
Okay.
She'll be back Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you. If it comes back, may I please ask?
You can
Thank
also email. That's fine.
It was totally germane to what we're discussing, and it's just gone.
No
Thank
worries.
you, Counselor. Counselor Montague?
Came back. Thank you. I
Go ahead.
would. Okay, did I hear you correctly that you said you're discussing what would happen if we had a problem with the grid with regard to sewer and water and all that? You are working on a plan? You have a plan?
Yeah, the wastewater plant is a little bit harder to sort of chunk up into manageable units than the water treatment plant is. So we are discussing, like, are there systems that we could individually isolate and run that could keep a bare minimum of the process running? And what would power generation look like for those? And how could we do that in a way that would be sustainable if there were a large emergency like that? We haven't come up with any firm solutions yet.
But you're working on it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's encouraging.
You good?
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to say that have you gone yet? Are you good? Oh, so this weekend was a car show at Bryant Park, and it was tremendous. A lot of people came from all over to come to Albany. A lot of folks went downtown. They used our services. They went to the carousel, and 216 cars, and some lovely people from all over the valley. People came from Portland, Corrales, Philomath, Junction City. So if you ever get a chance and you see something going on, go just stop in and say hi. People would love to hear from you, especially elected officials and city employees. Just stop in and see what's going on. I'd really appreciate that. Now I'll turn it over to the city manager for his comments.
Just two things, Mr. Mayor. We've heard today from Lynn County that we have an accepted date to meet in a joint work session with them. That would be Monday, September 25th, over at the Lynn Expo Center. And of course, this will be added to the whiteboard, and you'll get more information on it as we get
Did you have a time?
It's a regular work session, 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, and then some of you have asked about ARA meetings in September. And, we have that 6-week break that the council has, which is a first time that we're trying this. And we want very much to make sure we hold on to those 6 weeks. But if you'll recall, we talked about the remote possibility that we would have to call you all back together. And there's one thing that's driving that, and that is the possibility that we'll have something back from the railroad, which will allow us to proceed if we can get the ARA together to approve a contract. So those meeting dates are placeholders at this point. If we can in any way save the 6-week break, we will certainly do that. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much, City Manager. Thank you, Peter. At this time, I'll adjourn the meeting at 6:02 p.m. I will see you Wednesday night at 6 p.m. here in Chambers for our City Council meeting. Thank you very much.